We're surviving 100 days in ATM10’s 10, a massive mod pack filled with magic, technology and some of the strongest bosses in Minecraft. Our final goal is to defeat the Chaos Guardian, but normal gear won't even keep us alive long enough to fight it. First, we'll have to reach Unobtainium, build a system capable of producing ridiculous amounts of power, and turn that energy into a fully charged Draconic equipment. And with our hardcore shared death rule, one mistake from either of us ends the entire run. So sit back, relax and enjoy the video. After the last attempts, we really had to lock in, to not fail this run as well.
Nice, ein Sword. Kitty Slipper, sehr gut. Nehme ich direkt mit. Ich hab Kitty Slippers für dich und Oh. Ich hab Infinite Helm gefunden.
We decided it's best not to wander off too far away from spawn and build our home next to the village.
Okay, Toro, erste Kiste haben wir schon mal.
With hundreds of quests and no obvious way through the modpack, making a perfect plan on how to beat the Chaos Guardian was basically impossible. We'd have to figure things out as we went.
Kai, ich hab noch welche.
The caves had been almost unplayable in our earlier attempts, so finding night vision goggles this early on was a massive win for us.
Finally. Oh, man kann das Spiel endlich spielen. Ich habe Ultimodium.
Echt?
Ja.
Luckily, we also found Ultimodium just a few seconds later, which means we could finally build a portal to the mining dimension. With the mining dimension, we opened the door to much faster progression, but we wanted to check out the nether first, so we geared up and headed into the nether. On our way, we also stumbled across the ancient night spawner, which would be useful later on.
Oh. Hey, das ist gut.
We were lucky and our portal spawned right beside a nether fortress, which saved us a dangerous search and also gave us an easy target to find some new loot that we desperately needed.
Oh Gott, ich bin auch low. Oh. Bau dich bitte ein, wenn du low bist.
We kept exploring and found some piglins which were pretty aggressive and Turbo kept walking into them.
Achtung! Turbo, jetzt lauf doch nicht dahin!
Ich will da hoch, wo soll ich denn hin?
Bro, du brauchst dich schon wieder hoch.
Was war das jetzt für ein Attentat?
Ich wusste nicht, dass es die Explosion macht.
The faster we progressed, the worse our storage became, so before our chests would become too much of a pain, we started building a vault and a bookworm setup.
Was geht da ab?
This was also where our roles started to split. I handled most of the magic, while Turbo focused on engineering, and the vault needed both of it to work. Our mobility was really bad, so I started Evilcraft to work towards a broom that would finally give us a faster way to travel. While I worked on the broom, we also made the Pickaxe of Vengeance, giving us access to Fortune 5 and making every future mining trip far more valuable to save us some important time. In the meantime, Turbo started to build the vaults below our base. I couldn't progress any further though, because one recipe needed lapis, and after I had searched for ages, Turbo found it in the mining dimension instead.
Ich hab Lapis. Ich hab Lapis. Ich hab Lapis, Schatz. Endlich.
Ich habe auch Lapis.
Turbo also decided to make himself a netherite pickaxe after finally finding an ingot. Once the lectern and bookworm charm were finished, the vault was finally usable and we removed our chests.
Ja, 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 ja. Oh.
With the ores that we got from the mining dimension, Turbo could finally start out with Mechanism. Turbo immediately celebrated our progress by soloing a boss, and he nearly ended both of our runs, but somehow he survived. Now that I finally had all the materials for the broom, I could finish it.
Let's go, ich hab 2 Brooms.
With Turbo finding even more oldemodium, we actually couldn't upgrade our gear because we still needed a template, and to find the ancient city we decided to make a tablet of locate structure. Now that we had the template, we could finally upgrade our gear, and the advantage of them is that they're unbreakable. The next upgrades would need a ridiculous amount of netherite, especially the Draconic Evolution items, so we could never mine it manually, which meant we had to go to the ancient night spawner, get the DNA and make a spawner out of it.
Ich sterbe halt.
Hab ihn.
I also found a bastion, which means we could get the vibranium template at one point.
Warum ist die Structure so riesig? Ich hab ihn. Für die Dimension, für die Card.
Happy birthday, Taco!
Oh, was?
We were also running short on slime balls, so we opened the slime gateway and defeated the bosses with my highly advanced strategy of firing missiles at it. With the spawn egg that I made earlier, I was able to build the ancient night spawner, which would solve our netherite problem. And Turbo was so kind to build it for me, so I didn't have to do it. Now that we handled the netherite issue, the number of resources we needed kept growing, so I started mystical agriculture, upgraded the farmland and added a harvester pylon to just automate the farm. Since we also need Ars Nouveau for the ATM star, I also started doing that. Now that Turbo found some vibranium, it was time for me to go to the Bastion and look for the template. I wasn't quite sure where it was, since I only knew that it was suspicious Souls Land, so I kept looking.
Und wo soll das Soul Sand sein? Oh, da ist er. Ich hab's.
Echt?
Ja.
With the template secured, Turbo could upgrade our gear to vibranium. In the meantime, I got dragged into Create, because one of the seats we needed was locked behind it.
Upgrade, upgrade, upgrade. Automotive packets. Yeah, finally. Oh, damn.
Crazy. As you guys heard, I was pretty happy about it, so we also decided it's time to make an enchantment table so Turbo could get on with the hell shelves and stuff. With the base finally stable and our gear upgraded, we summoned the Wither for its Nether Star. It was a pretty one-sided fight, so we just ended it quickly to go on with the remaining stuff.
Oh, and a Wither trophy. Crazy. Nice.
But since the secondary objective was to get the ATM star, we also had to do a lot of quests. So when there was thunder, I just went to the weather catalyst and got myself a lightning potion.
Lightning bomb?
Lightning bomb! But then reality hit when we actually saw how much we needed.
9. 9.
Productive Trees.
Du hast nur Bäume. Die musst du crossbreeden, ne?
Wie willst du Baum crossbreeden?
Ich weiß nicht mal, wo dieser Kackbaum ist. Wo ist der? Was ist das für eine Kackmod?
Yeah, after that little crash out, we went to the other and found the little dungeon that we needed for the quest.
Oh, Divine. Oh. Oha. Junge. Oh. Was ist das für Loot hier drin? What?
The dungeon was packed with valuable loot, including an item we'd need for the ATM star. Leaving immediately would have been a waste though, because we still needed to find the boss.
Oh. Oh. Das sind die Bosse, ne?
Die check ich nicht.
Turbo's next bookshelf upgrades needed warden drops, which meant his enchantment setup had now become my problem. So I went into the deep dark and hunted them down.
Bro. Der kann einfach gar nichts. What?
After I defeated all of the wardens, I decided it's best to go back to mystical agriculture and get some progress done there.
Und das heißt 300%iger Output.
To not get lost on the ATM star, I also finished the Rainbow Furnace quest. It wasn't a major breakthrough, just one more requirement out of the way though, and because it might be useful for smelting a lot of items.
Serious dedication. Automotive hole.
While Turbo finished upgrading his weapon, I built a wayfinder and tracked down the stronghold, because the end was the next goal we had to complete so we can get the materials we actually needed. Now that I had the wayfinder, we could finally challenge the Ender Dragon. So we made ourselves some crossbows and just enchanted them lightly, and then we went to the stronghold. Turbo and I also found some artifacts there and some more loot in the chests.
Oh, enchanted tablet of home. Allows you to teleport to a respawn point. That's cool.
Now that we found the end portal, it was time to finally challenge the Ender Dragon. Our gear made the normal Ender Dragon look manageable, but one stupid mistake would still fail both of our runs, so we took the fight cautiously. The dragon was the main target for now, because else we couldn't reach the outer end and get better gear. We're a bit behind schedule, so we have to hurry up.
Sehr nice. Holy moly, da ist was. End-City und was noch?
Hier ist ein Draconic Evolution Meteor.
Damn, das ist ja riesig. Okay, gib mir die Leiter schon mal. Hey, hier ist keine Leiter. Rage? Ah, doch, da ist eine Leiter.
With the dragon gone, we raided an end city, grabbed the dragon head, the elytra and went home with everything we could take.
Ich habe gerade vorher übrigens vergessen, den Dragon Head mitzunehmen, ich Vogel.
Gut, dass du mich daran erinnerst.
Ja, ich nehme jetzt nämlich den auch mit.
Once I got back to base, I decided to make the Master Infusion Crystal, so I could upgrade all my essence without the crystal breaking. Since we also needed a lot of different materials, including iron and gold, I decided to build the altar we needed to make those specific seeds, because the higher levels of the seeds needed a different recipe to make them.
Oh, was ein Effekt.
To upgrade our mobility even further, Turbo decided to make an infusion pylon, so we could get the creative flight effect.
Oha. Hey, wie geil. Dankeschön.
Now, even though that we had creative flight, Turbo decided to upgrade his jetpack, because in a Chaos Guardian fight, we are definitely gonna need the speed.
Digga. Turbo?
Der kann explodieren.
I also started to unlock the world tiers so we could get our hands on some better quality loot and gear. In the meantime, Turbo decided to make the Explorer's Compass, so we could easily find any structure in the world, meaning we could save a lot of time.
Oh, hier ist ein Fire Dragon.
Ja, habe ich auch schon gesehen.
Komm her! Komm her! Oh mein...
Was?
Ich bin gerade fast gestorben an dem. Bro, der guckt dich komplett.
After I've almost lost the run to a fire dragon, which I didn't expect to deal this much damage, Turbo decided to keep on going with Apothic Enchanting, and then we went to the template dungeon in the other.
Ach du Kacke, es sind da viele Mobs.
Ja, was ist das denn jetzt halber Zoo?
Ja, was geht denn hier ab?
This place was swarmed with mobs, and when I'm telling you swarmed, it was unbelievably dense of enemies that we had to fight. It was insane.
Hier sind Player-Head, Digga, was sind das für Psycho-Half? Ich nehm die Head mal mit.
Was sind da so viele?
We couldn't really get through. While Turbo stayed up there, I was going down in search for the template.
Warum sind hier so viele Mobs? Oh nein. Die Evoker. Warum so viele?
Those evokers were really hard to deal with, so I had to be extra careful not to end the run here.
Du musst aufpassen, du hast keinen Lifesteal, ne? Du hast keinen Lifesteal, du darfst ja eigentlich nicht runter. Bro, ich komm nicht durch, das waren viel zu viele.
You've probably noticed that I was pretty distressed because of the mobs, and it didn't seem to get any better, so I had to find the template room as fast as possible.
Wait, ich hab den Room gefunden.
Now that the worst part was done, I only had to clear the room and then we should have our template.
Das Upgrade-Template.
Hast du?
Ja.
To not risk dying early, we set up an invoker spawner so we could get unlimited totems. We had some logistical issues, because for some reason the chest wouldn't clear out all the items we didn't need, but I fixed it and then it worked. For the better enchanting shelves, Turbo needed some infused dragon's breath, but he didn't have all of the levels, so I had to enchant them for him. For me this didn't really took that many levels, because I already have a pretty high amount of levels right now. Now that this was done, he could finally finish all of the shelves, so we could now enchant to the highest level, giving us access to the most OP enchantments of the game. And since I desperately needed an upgrade, I took all of the lapis we found and started enchanting my books. He also built a little library so we could keep track of all our enchantments that we already had. And we could also use it to make ourselves some enchanted books with the enchantments that we wanted on them. Mystical agriculture was a bit too slow, and for the late game I would need a better way of producing resources, especially because we were on a time limit, so our goal was to make a time bee and some time fluid so we could speed up all of the production. But since Turbo needed 2 more nether stars, I got them for him. With the advanced and the digital miner and all of the stuff we did so far, Turbo was able to find some unobtainium.
Hab's gefunden.
And with that we finally reached one of our 3 sub-goals, to defeat the Chaos Guardian. We should still be in time, but that's no reason to keep slacking now. Thanks to Turbo's effort, I could finally make myself some unobtainium gear.
Oh, crazy. Drippy.
The next step was to make a dragon scale seed, but we ran into a little issue, as you guys can see.
Hab ich gedupt?
Ich glaube ich auch.
Hä? Guck mal.
Ich habe gerade Pickup-Upgrade gemacht, ich habe jetzt nur die 2.
Hä?
Yeah, maybe the server might have lagged or anything similar, but yeah, we duped, so we had to get rid of the items.
Weg damit.
We wanted some better gear, so we decided to upgrade our world tier again, or at least I did. And to do this, I only had to upgrade like 2 or 3 items, so this wasn't the hard part.
Let's go activate.
Kid Hobo.
Let's go. Yes, sir.
Now that I was at the highest world tier, I somehow had to get the gemstones. So the only logical thing to do was to build an end farm, because it's the easiest and cheapest way to get them. While I was building the end farm, Turbo started preparing all the stuff we would need for the reactor. It was my first time building an end farm, so I was just following a tutorial and it worked pretty well, to be honest. Until the endermite died because I had a weird enchantment on my sword.
Nice, finally.
And as you guys can see, it worked even better than I expected. I got that many gemstones in that short amount of time. And not even just the gemstones, I also got a lot of Godforged pearls that I would need to reforge my gear. While I was finishing up the end farm, Turbo also built the fission reactor, which was the requirement for the stuff that we needed for the fusion reactor.
Boah, der Execute da drauf ist ja crazy.
Thanks to the end farm, I was able to reforge my gear, so I had to stress test it out on a Warden.
Warum macht mir kein Damage mehr, gell?
Since I didn't take any damage from the Warden, I decided it's time for the gateway of the Apothic Pinnacle. And if you guys don't know what it does, it just opens another gateway for some more boss fights.
Oh, also... Irgendwie habe ich mir das schwieriger vorgestellt. Hab ich dich, du Ratte. Oh Gott. Oh Gott. Huh?
To be fair, I don't even know what happened there. For some reason, the goat just exploded.
Hey.
I also made myself a mage set from the spare unobtainium that we had. I wasn't quite sure if we could kill the boss in the other, so I decided to make a mob measure just to try it out. But I just came to the conclusion that it's just faster to kill him with my sword.
Mein Schatten macht unfassbar viel Damage auf, die fällt mir ganz auf.
For the Draconic gear, we would need a lot of nether stars, and since we didn't have a way to get them automatically at the moment, I decided to make a nether star seed, which would be useful later on. Thankfully, Turbo was also starting out with Draconic Evolution at the moment, so we wouldn't run into a problem later in the run. Now that I had the Nether Star Seed, I had to upgrade the production speed so Turbo could start working on the items.
Weil ich brauche kurz eine Meinung.
Warte!
Ich bin überfordert.
To build the Draconic core, we would need a lot of space, so I expanded the building area. Big thanks to Turbo, by the way, for crafting the building gadget. Since the area was done, he could start building now.
Ja, so ist gut. Boah, ja, perfekt, perfekt. Besser geht's gar nicht. Das ist so schön mittig.
In the meantime, the farm produced enough supremium to upgrade our farmland even more. Turbo also finished building the main core and also built the advanced stabilizer, so the core would even work in the first place. Now we had a functioning energy core, and we even produced a decent amount of power, but it definitely wasn't enough to start crafting with Draconic Evolution. And since I didn't want to live in such a shit base, I decided to start with mine colonies. Turbo really isn't a fan of the mod, because I never really finish it, but for this time I wanted to see how far I can get with the mod. Since you need a builder hall to build the town hall, I decided to look for the perfect location to place it in. And it made sense to build it right next to the town hall, so the builder could easily travel there. Since we had a bit of power left in the energy core, Turbo upgraded some of our injectors.
Oha, das sieht ja voll neu aus mittlerweile.
Ja.
By day 45 we still hadn't finished the reactor or the Draconic gear it was supposed to power, and since waiting for everything manually was taking far too long, I decided it was finally time to work towards the time bee. I also picked up some skulk sensors that Turbo needed, but I had a little issue because we were completely out of honey. So I made a waystone and traveled into the Bumble Zone, where I finally found enough honey to build a proper hive for all of our bees.
Okay, ich bin in der Bumble Zone. Woher kriege ich Honigbottles? Oh, süß. Sind die Bienen jetzt aggro? Oh. Oh, oh, gib mir den Honig. Ey. Ey. Hey. 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 Chill. Chill.
With the hive I wouldn't have the problem of the bees flying away, so that was pretty neat. Since the time bee required several different bees, I started with the glowing bee, and to get one I just placed a glowstone hive in the nether and waited for it to spawn.
Oh. Oh. Das ist ja, die ich brauche. Wait. Wait. Komm her. Nice.
Meanwhile, Turbo started Applied Energetics too, and the first thing he had to do was to track down meteorites so he could get the presses that he needed, but Applied Energetics 2 was also required to make the time crystals we'd eventually need for the bee. It was pretty hard to get the crystals though, because they had to grow inside a specific biome, so what Turbo did was he built a cut and paste gadget to move the entire setup without having to rebuild it every time. It still required a second run though, through all of the biomes again, so we could get all the crystals we would need. Eventually though, the setup worked, and we finally had the time crystals we needed. Turbo also collected the remaining materials for the time wand and also added a few quality of life upgrades to our jetpacks, while I focused on the next part of the time bee. I started by breeding diamond bees and converting them into celestigem bees.
Turbo. Guck mal hier hinten. Was hältst du von meiner Eierfarm?
Since we needed a lot of eggs for the recipe, I built a very small and completely reasonable chicken farm, which was definitely not unethical or anything like that.
Ach du Kacke. Das Ding heißt nicht ohne Grund Bottler. Oh mein Gott, bin ich dumm.
Once I finally got the bottler working, I could extract the genes from the bees and use the eggs from the farm to create custom spawn eggs.
Und dann brauche ich... Oh. So viele Eier schon.
Du weißt, was das heißt.
Oh nein. Ach du Sch... Junge.
Das geht noch größer.
Oh Mann. So.
Guck mal, wo der Flügel hingeht.
Bro.
Der ist so riesig.
And with that I got our first celestigem bee egg and moved us one step closer to the time bee. Another bee I needed was the Skulk bee, which meant I had to collect several Digger bees and convert them one by one by using Skulk.
So, das sind schon mal 2 Skulk-Bees. Du willst mir nicht sagen, dass es einen Breeder gibt. Du willst mir gerade nicht sagen, dass es einen Breeder gibt. Endlich.
At this point, almost everything was ready for the time bee. The only missing ingredient was the time fluid, but since Turbo got us the time crystals, it was very easy to make. And while I finished the bee setup, Turbo started constructing the mechanism fusion reactor.
Ja. Ich hab's, Turbo. Guck mal in meine Hand.
Ein Bier.
If you guys ever played mechanism reactors, then you know the reactor can't run on its own because it needs DT fuel, so we built the evaporation towers to process the liquid.
Oh, Turbo, es funktioniert. Timecomb, ja.
Deine Arbeit war nicht umsonst, Kai.
Oh ja, es funktioniert. Ja. Oh, danke.
Schreibt.
Oh, Turbo, es funktioniert so gut.
Once I completed the time bee, I used it to set up a semi-automatic time fluid farm. I also relocated the rest of the bees and connected their production to a heated centrifuge, making it way more effective. As you guys can see, I also hooked up a crafter to it. Now I just had to find a way to extract the time fluid from the centrifuge, and I just used a mechanical pipe for that. And after all of that, the reactor was finally complete.
Okay, bereit?
Ja.
3, 2, 1, Feuer.
Es läuft. Das heißt, der Quantum hier kommt weg. Oh, Kai, guck mal, wie viel Energie der macht.
Was? Wo?
Warte, geh mal zum Core, geh mal zum Core.
Der macht gar nicht. Oh, nevermind.
With the core working and the reactor producing a lot of power, more than we could actually ever need, we finally completed our second goal of the run, and we're at day 62 right now. So we still have a bit of time left. I was way too lazy to craft all of the essence, so I decided to hook a crafter up to it so it would automatically do it for me. Since the farm has produced so much supremium already, I decided to upgrade the farmland as well. With the reactor running, I could finally make an awakened draconium seed. We'd need a huge amount of it for the remaining Draconic Evolution equipment, so starting production was necessary now. I also put the time one to good use by permanently speeding up as many of our production systems as possible. And while I did that, I kept the builder supplied with materials, so the builder hut could finally be completed.
Komm, Ariana. Ja, danke. Okay, wir haben die Bilderhut fertig.
Cool.
The only issue was that the time wand couldn't speed up our crops directly, only if they've been placed in a hopper botany pot, so instead of relying on the awakened draconium seed, I created an awakened draconium bee, which could be accelerated inside the hive. This also meant I only had to craft one awakened draconium block for 5 bees, which was pretty good. I've also made an upgrade for the heated centrifuge, so we could automatically extract the time fluid.
Da kommt die Time Fluid rein. Und hier unten kommt der Basic Filter rein. Das heißt, der Honig müsste jetzt rausgehen und ja.
Meanwhile, Turbo replaced our old bookworm storage with an ME crafting terminal and started installing the first upgrades into his chest plate.
Hier hat's gebrannt? Willst du mich verarschen?
We've been unlucky because lightning struck and the house caught on fire. Just as a safety measure before the fight, I decided to upgrade our power transmitters, so we wouldn't have any problems when we fought the Chaos Guardian.
Also ich würde es immer noch besser finden, wenn du ein Undying reinmachst.
Just keep that Undying module in mind, because it will have a vital role later on. With fewer than 20 days remaining, I couldn't delay my own equipment any longer, so I upgraded my Draconic armor and added shield recovery modules along with the other upgrades we need to survive the Chaos Guardian.
Shield Recovery heißt es, gell?
Ja.
After this boring compilation of me upgrading my chest piece, I decided it's time to upgrade the bows, which would be essential for the boss fight.
Oh, holy moly. Ich hab was Schönes für dich, Turbo. Guck mal, was ich mit deinem Bogen gemacht habe.
Aber Crit Chance, Arrow Damage plus 55% aufs Krank.
With the gems from Apotheosis, we were able to upgrade our bow to the max. Putting the final touches on the armor felt pretty unreal, because you can't tell me 85 days pass like this, bro. Now that most of our stuff was done, Turbo decided to build an autocrafter and also put the finishing touches on his bow. With this we had completed our first sub goal at day 90, which meant now the only thing left was the Chaos Guardian. But we weren't going straight to the Chaos Guardian without testing the new gear first, so we headed into the Nether and fought a mini-boss to see whether the upgrades could actually keep us alive.
Da bin ich.
Warum hab ich das Gefühl, einfach One-Tappen? Boah, das ist geil.
Yo. Crazy fight.
Ey, Kai, GG's, Mann!
Wow, crazy.
Since we two-tapped the boss, we felt pretty ready for the Chaos Guardian, so this would be an all-or-nothing fight, because if we died the run would be over. I provided the last resources for the builder, and then we went to search for the Chaos Guardian.
Oh, komm mal hier. Oh, es ist ein Pain, hier durchzugehen. Ja, war gar kein Intro, wir machen es Feature-Bändern.
Von ich mit meinen Flossen, Digga.
And now, after all that preparation we've done, it's finally time to take on the Chaos Guardian.
Ja, okay, alle Quests ist fertig, ne?
Weiter nach hinten, weiter nach hinten!
Du musst einfach nur den Tacken von ihm draufhalten. Mein Totem ist gepoppt.
Ein Totem!
Ja.
Dann.
Alles gut.
Nein, bleib dahinter.
Bin ich doch.
Beweg dich bitte nicht.
Remember when I said this? Also ich würde es immer noch besser finden, wenn du ein Undying reinmachst.
Ist der Totem gerade wieder gepoppt?
And on day 95 we finally completed the goal of killing the Chaos Guardian. Now the only thing left for the island was to break the Chaos Crystal, which we would need for later upgrades.
Lass mich abbauen, ich habe mir Fortune. Aber das macht keinen Unterschied.
With the Chaos Guardian done, we have completed all of our goals in those 100 days. Now we use those last 4 days to improve some stuff in our base and also to upgrade more stuff to Chaotic.
Willst du umziehen?
Guck dir mal die Gegend hier an, du weißt, was ich meine.
Da können wir ja mit einem Zug hinfahren dann.
Turbo found a nice potential build spot where we could build in the future.
Yeah, nice. Okay. Guck mal hier Turbo.
Oh. Eigentlich müssen wir die so in den Horizont stellen, so hin auf den Berg oder so, dass man die so nebenbei sieht.
Gute Idee. Okay, Wächter Nummer 1 ist aufgestellt, Turbo. Wie findest du?
Ey, das ist übel geil.
Sieht schon geil aus, gell?
Das hast du gerade nicht gesehen, was ich da getötet habe.
Turbo.
Das hast du nicht gesehen.
Turbo!
Wieso siehst du das?
Guck, Chicken. Meinen einzigen Freund hast du gekillt.
Hallo, ich bin auch dein Freund.
Du hast Petit Oster gekillt. Was soll das?
Hey guys, so there's a few things I want to talk about. So first, if you sticked around, I really want to thank you all, especially for the support on the last video and for watching this video. I really appreciate it, you know. To be honest, I kind of felt a bit of demotivation because of this video. I assume it was just a sheer amount of work, so it took way longer than expected and I'm very sorry for that. I still hope you enjoyed though, because it was a lot of work, so... But I'm pretty happy with the video. And I'm definitely gonna make some more videos as well. They might just take some more time though. I've also been posting on my community tab and I've also made a community Discord server, so if you wanna join you can hit up the link in the bio. And other than that, I still wish you a great week. See ya!